are here. He is, it's very cool that it was hot off the press this week. He said let's have a book launch right here in Magnation, Iowa, so we love that. Those are not party favors, but how much are they?
$24.95.
$24.95. So way to support a J6er right here. So grab one before you go out the door. He'll take care of you. He can sign it. And here you go. Look out.
Thank you very much, Lori. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me here. Thank you to everyone who bought my book. I can't believe how many I sold. So it's been a lot of fun already today. I'm from Cedar Rapids, for those who don't know. My family and I run a little internet company over there. We have 20-some employees and just moved into a new building actually in Hiawatha. And born and raised in that area. Marion actually, homeschool kid, K through 12.
Yeah, homeschool. It really is, actually, I learned so much, and I treasure like what I received from my parents in that. So, but I grew up politically active. I remember going to the Iowa Straw Poll when I was a kid, and I thought it was great. I met Reggie White and Carl Malone and supported like Pat Buchanan and Alan Keyes and those types of guys with my parents. And then when I got older, I voted for guys like Ron Paul. And so I was like really politically active, kind of entrepreneur family with a stay-at-home mom. And as I got older though, I always voted, but I went through the Bush years and the Obama years, and I just got really frustrated with politics because I looked at the net result and it was like, okay, well, government's just getting bigger. The freedoms are getting smaller, like we're getting further and further in debt. Why are our wars, I don't remember why we're in all these wars anymore, like what's going on? And why isn't there a difference in the Bush result and the Obama result? It really troubled me. So by the time 2016 came around, I wasn't even a Trump guy. I was just disengaged. I was like, whatever, it doesn't matter, I'm out of this. That is like a perfect victory for the enemy, right? Like he wants us disengaged with politics. We have a responsibility to be engaged. God has given us a responsibility here to carry the flame of freedom, basically. So I don't think I was right in that, but that's where I was at. 2016, didn't support Trump. Well, I watched him govern, and I kind of said, okay, this guy's, he's fighting for freedom. I don't agree with everything he's doing necessarily, and whatever, but like the net result of this is we're taking a step back towards life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? We're the nation that holds it to be self-evident that we're all created equal. We're endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, and the reason why a government even exists is to secure those rights. That's what makes us Americans. The legitimacy of that government rests on us, the people here, the consent of the governed. Tamara reminds me of that. So I voted for Trump in 2020 and became very upset when, like you guys probably all this had the same experience as me, went to bed that night when he was ahead, woke up in the morning, and all of a sudden he's not ahead, and the margin of error was like just enough in every one of the states that matters. Like, oh, what a coincidence. Well, I did a deep dive, and I watched like the state legislators doing hearings in Michigan around Wayne County elections and Fulton County in Georgia, which is that's where Detroit and Atlanta is, and a bunch of other places. I read the forensic cybersecurity company that did the audit of the electronic voting machines in Antrim County, Michigan, which is the only county they even allowed us to audit. And I just said, oh wow, they totally stole this election. That, like, I satisfied myself beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like, and then you look back now and just say, like, oh, does anyone here think that Joe Biden got 80 million votes? It's laughable. Like, I mean, but anyway, so Trump was calling this rally in January 6, 2021, and he said, hey, we're going to stand up for election integrity. We're going to, stop the steal. We're going to ask Congress to send the certification back to the states to have them do a little bit further investigating. Well, of course, what happened that day is it got crazy, right? So the president was speaking on and on in his time slot, and I'm bored out of my mind because it's freezing cold that day. It's cloudy and kind of rainy, and I know everything that he's saying. He's going through every single, Maricopa County, here's all the things that were wrong with that, and Wayne County, Michigan, here's what's wrong with that, and like Fulton County, Georgia, and like Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, and like, well, I was like, yeah, I know all this. Yeah, let's do something about it. Like, I'm just at a rally. I didn't think I was, I didn't know what to do, but I thought that was enough. So we end up going down to the Capitol, and here's the interesting thing that a lot of people don't know. When the president got done speaking, all of us, how many here were at January 6th? Was anybody else? Yeah, okay, so some of you guys, and when you were at the president's speech? Yeah. So, what was it like when we got down to the Capitol building? It's about a 45-minute to a 1-hour walk from the ellipse where he was speaking to the Capitol. Well, during the time that he got done speaking and our walk over there was when most of what you saw on the violence on TV happened. When the cops got pepper sprayed, when people threw the barricades, broke the windows. Not all of it, but most of it happened while the hundreds of thousands of Trump people had no idea what was going on, and we're just walking our way down Constitution Avenue on our way to the Capitol building. So anyway, I get there and I get wrapped up into it, and I'm coming. This is my mindset. I'm coming out of the COVID year, the Black Lives Matter riots, and the George Floyd and all this stuff, and I've been seeing all the Kenosha, Wisconsin, seeing all this stuff on TV, the way it's reported in the media, and comparing it to like what like citizen journalists are kind of sharing, and I'm seeing a disconnect. And so I walk up to the Capitol on January 6th, and I'm like, okay, this is good. This is something big is happening here. I don't know what's happening, but something is going on, and I don't want to miss it. So in my mind, I'm going to go up and get as close as I possibly can to see it, which I don't know if that was the smartest thing to do, but it caused me a lot of trouble. But that's what I decided to do. So I get up there, I walk up. There's a kind of a porch up. A lot of you have probably been there, but like there's a porch, and there's just people everywhere. There's people waving flags, and now there's tear gas in the air. So I'm like, oh, okay, there's somebody's having a fight here, and then I look in, and there's broken windows. And the first time I saw police, they were actually inside the Capitol building. And what protesters were already in the building, running out, jumping through broken windows, and the cops are just kind of standing there watching them like, And so I'm like, well, that's weird. Why are they doing that? Anyway, somebody else opens up. The way I got in was not one of those. You've probably seen the footage where the cops open the door and hold it for the protesters and wave them in. That actually was not my experience. I ended up going in through a fire exit door that someone else had. I didn't see this at the time, but what happened is he had smashed a window and reached in and pushed the unlock. And interesting thing about that was the guy pushed the unlock, and this is the U.S. Capitol. You can't just do that. There's magnetic locks on these things. But he was able to push the unlock, and it just opened. So somebody turned that off. And we, that wasn't investigated. I don't know, who knows why that happened, right? I think a few of us in this room have an idea. But I followed some other protesters in. And it was just crazy in there. You have to there's kind of three main groups of protesters in the area that I was in. There was the Trump people that showed up and were just kind of like people in this room, flag waving, patriots, whatever. They're passionate. They're very upset about what's going on, so they're upset, but they're basically just walking around. Then there's some Trump supporters that get kind of wrapped up in the chaos, and I think they maybe ransacked some offices, and they did some things they ought not to have done. Then there were people that were causing just wanton destruction. There were two guys, so I walked in the door, and there's this office to my right, which I found out later is called the Parliamentarian's Office. I also found out that there is a certain specific law on the federal books that makes it a specific kind of trespassing to walk into that office. But anyway, these guys are ransacking the office, tipping over printers and throwing papers everywhere and just causing mayhem. So I walked in there and I said, hey, knock it off. This is a sacred spot. This is our building. Like, why would you do that? And anyway, they left, and who knows what happened to them or what they were doing. But anyway, that earned me another trespassing charge. And I had it, like, I filmed the whole thing. Like, so it was obvious that what I was doing was that. And, like, that's kind of what was really frustrating about the process of going through the courts there. So I'll finish. The January 6th story ends where I end up making it into the Senate chamber. I pray in there, and I'm done. I just decided to leave. Time to go home. I go back to my hotel, think it's over. And sure enough, of course, I get arrested a few days later, and I'm charged with a list of misdemeanors. And I'm like, well, I mean, a misdemeanor is like running a red light. This is like, what's the big deal? Because like in my mind, like, should I have really walked into that building? Well, I don't know. Maybe I should have had the sense to stay away. I mean, it sure caused me a lot of trouble. Like, but be that as it may, like, I started calling defense attorneys in Washington and saying, well, hey, what's can we do some constitutional defense strategies here? Can we do right to peaceable assembly? Or how about the free exercise of religion? Or how about equal justice under the law? Because there was journalists in there standing right next to me that didn't even get charged. They had the same exact right as I did to be there, but they didn't get charged, right? So anyway, the interesting thing was I talked to a lot of defense attorneys from Washington. Because they wouldn't let you transfer the case. Nobody was allowed to transfer cases out of the Washington, D.C. jurisdiction. So I talked to like 10 or 20 defense attorneys, and they all said the same thing when I brought up anything to do with the Constitution. They said, Leo, I get paid by the hour. I'll make whatever arguments you want. I don't care. But I advise you against anything to do with the Constitution, because that's not going to help you in Washington, D.C., because that doesn't apply in these courts. And that was the uniform response of defense attorneys in Washington, D.C. She's asked me to say it again. So basically, I was asking these potential defense attorneys that I was going to hire, can we pursue some constitutional defense strategies here? Can we say that the Constitution guarantees the right to peaceable assembly? Well, I was being peaceable and I was assembling. Can we say equal justice under the law? Because there's left-wing journalists that were standing right next to me that literally they used the evidence of their phone taking pictures of me to prove that I was there. Equal justice under the law says we should get equal treatment, right? Well, the defense attorneys, all of them said the exact same thing. They said, Leo, we would be happy to make whatever arguments you ask us to make, but if you go the constitutional route, you're going to lose because it doesn't apply in these courts. It's just crazy. Like, I mean, so think about this. If the law, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. If the law of the United States doesn't apply in a jurisdiction that belongs to the United States, the government has been overthrown there. So anyway, and it's a lonely place to be, right? So I'm starting to realize, I'm kind of in a little bit more trouble than I thought. So the process just takes forever, and we go on and on and on through this, delay after delay, and they eventually add stack of felony onto my charges, and so now I'm in really serious trouble, looking at a lot of jail time, and we're going through it all, and it's so frustrating because I'm an American, and I've been trained that I'm endowed by my Creator with these rights. And the only reason for government, as the Declaration of Independence says, is to secure these rights. And so I had to really choose right then what I was going to do, because the default response for me was to demand those rights. But what I had to contrast that with is I followed Jesus, and Jesus went to the cross to defeat death. And so what I decided to do was basically just, okay, I'm going to humble myself. I don't really see how, there's literally nothing I can do. The louder I scream, the worse it's going to get for me. So I might as well just choose to be faithful to my God, to love my enemies, to do good to those who persecute me, and to walk in faithfulness. And so I just kind of put my head down, and I did that. for about 2.5 years while we're working to our way towards trial. And we reached out, we tried, talking to our state representatives, and a lot of, probably people in this room reached out on my behalf for, to my state rep or to the senators, and it's just a lonely place to be. January 6th was radioactive to those people. And I should say, there's 2 politicians in Iowa that did stand up for me, and they're here, Jim Carlin and Brad Sherman, so I don't like, yeah, thank you guys, thank you. It's not I don't like telling people how to vote, but they both, when all the forces of Washington, D.C. and the media were against them, they had my back. So thanks, Jim, and thanks, Brad. I really appreciate you guys just doing that. So anyway, I ended up getting convicted of all my charges. I get sentenced to 30 months in prison. The interesting thing was I had to report myself to prison. It's just weird how the justice system works. You get sentenced to jail. Actually, I got convicted, and then they're like, okay, you have to come back in 2 months, and then we're going to sentence you. And I'm like, I get to go home? So I went home, worked, lived kind of a normal life, get sentenced, again get sent home, and then finally on, I believe it was October 18th of 23, I had to report to prison in Rochester, Minnesota. And I was serving a 30-month sentence. Here's the interesting thing that happened is the Supreme Court ended up throwing out the following summer this felony that it was a total nonsense charge. It was corporate fraud law. If anyone remembers Sarbanes-Oxley, right, that has nothing to do with a political protest, right, or anything to do with what we were doing on January 6th. But they kind of crowbarred that in, and I had to pay the penalty for it, right? And so eventually, as it wound its way through the courts, it made it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, well, no, this is just totally wrong. So they vacated that charge. So my sentence is now over, right? I have served enough time where with the removal of the felony, I only got misdemeanors. I've been in prison for 8 or 10 months at this point. My sentence is over. They still don't let me out. I can't get out of jail. I can't leave. It's like Hotel California. And so anyway, but again, what am I going to do in that situation? Am I going to throw a fit? I'm going to fight with everything I can to get free, of course. But I'm calling my lawyer, I'm calling whatever, and he's like, yeah, the charge is vacated, your sentence is up. I don't know, I sent a letter to the jail, they're not going to let you out, I don't know what to do. So anyway, I get through this, and finally, September 19th, they call my name over the loudspeaker, Leo Kelly, report to the unit secretary's office. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm finally going to make a plan to get out of this place because I know that's where you go. And this guy, Dustin, he was like, Leo, you're going home today. And I'm like, I don't think so. So anyway, I get in there, and the secretary sits me down. She says, okay, can you have your people come pick you up? And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I can. And they're like, no, like right now, because we need you out of here. So on a federal prison, it's a huge liability for a prison to have somebody that's not legally, they don't have the legal right to hold there. So I end up getting just out of the blue with no notice released on this day in September. But it's not as simple as that. A few weeks later, the prosecutors in Washington find out that I've been released, and they're not happy about it because they don't think that it should be as simple as that. So they send a letter to the judge and say, this is illegal. It was a mistake, actually. And the judge kind of freaks out, and he says, yeah, we need to re-sentence Leo because, I don't know what his justification was. But right, the Constitution says you can't be tried for the same crime twice, right? Well, if you can't be tried twice, you can't be re-sentenced either. So it's obviously illegal. But if they want to do it to you, they're going to do it to you. This is a power game at this point. It doesn't have to do with anything other than power. So I got to go back out there on December of 24. So Trump's been reelected. He says he's going to pardon everybody. These judges are still making us come back and do this. And so he sits us down. My lawyer sits me down ahead of time, and he's like, Leo, the only reason this judge is doing this today is to send you back to prison. He doesn't have to call this hearing if he doesn't want to. He's going to send you back to jail, and it just is what it is. And so I am like the most upset I've been through the whole process at this time. I am so mad, and I just feel so helpless and infuriated and everything, and it's just, ugh. So, but then I have these wonderful people from Republican Christians in Iowa, like Tracy Pettit and I think Tamara and a few other people, call me, and they prayed with me beforehand, and I had this like kind of divine experience where I felt like the wings of an angel around me, and like God telling me like, well, no, I got this, you're protected. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty much done trying to figure out what's going to happen at this point. I was just frustrated. But I'm carrying that in my heart. My brother said he was with me, and he said, Leo, you were so white and you looked ashen. But we walk in there, and the prosecutors come up and make their case, and they say, this is why Leo should go back to jail because they just made me sound awful. That's what accusers do. My lawyer goes up, and he actually made a really good argument. It didn't have anything to do with the law, because he had the wisdom to recognize that the law wasn't going to protect me. He just went up and said, hey, judge, people are going to look at this from the outside, and they're going to say, well, Leo's sentence was this. Nothing changed except the Supreme Court ruling. Now you're going to change his sentence. So it's going to look like this court doesn't respect the Supreme Court, which was obviously true. But the judge was kind of like, huh. And so he calls a recess, and it's a really short hearing. There's no reason to have a recess in the middle of this. But he calls a recess, and we recess for 10 or 15 minutes, and he goes back into his chambers, and he changed his paperwork. I guess we don't know what he did, but like that's what fits the facts. So he changed his mind, and he comes out and he says, Leo, I'm going to give you time served today. You've been an upstanding citizen for the rest of your life, and this looks like an aberration. So I'm just going to give you time served and let you go home. So like I was like, praise God. So that's just like, that's my story. I love, like, there's so much to it. The most of it's in the book. I'm happy to share that. I'm happy to take questions, but like, I just think where we're at right now is we have a really special place, and we have, we're the people that hold it to be self-evident that we're all created equal. We're endowed by our Creator with the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we have the government that's divine mandate, and the mandate of the people is to secure those rights. And what is our responsibility to that, right? Remember this. How did those guys sign the Declaration of Independence? Because we inherited this, right? In support of this declaration and in the view of providence, I'm probably getting some of it wrong, but like we mutually pledge to one another our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And I pledge that to each one of you. Like, I will support this declaration. Like, will you do that for me? Thank you. So, do we have time for questions, or should I just wrap it up?
I could wrap it up if you want. I mean, I don't want to. I know you got a lot of people.
Yes, we got one left here. Tell us what it was like a day or a week in jail. Like, what was like?
Oh, what was it like a day in the jail? So, this is like a whole nother experience. So I was at, my friend who works for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms described the place where I went as club fed. So I got fortunate as far as federal prisons go. It was a low security, which means you have a little bit more freedom. So a day for me would look like this. I would wake up at probably 5 o'clock, and I'm in a cell with sometimes one other guy, sometimes as many as 3 other guys, depending on who's been rotating in and out. There's a lot of coming and going. But the good news is the cell door doesn't lock. So you can go out and you can be on your unit and walk a little freely. So I'd wake up, I'd make, I had a plastic mug, make instant Folgers coffee with like that hot water dispenser. So I'd go do that, and I'd turn on my little personal light in my bunk, and I read my Bible, pray and read my Bible for maybe an hour to start the day. Just waiting for it to be, like, they'll call everyone over to breakfast at, I think, like 6:30 or 7. I can't remember exactly when. So then you go line up and get ready by the door, and they'll call this unit 22 East, I think I was this 2 building, 2nd floor, East Wing was where I was, and go to the chow hall to go. So then as soon as they call they'll unlock the door. You go out, go downstairs, you walk, and you can walk over to the cafeteria, grab food. And then, interestingly enough, I had a job afterwards that was kind of connected to that same building. And I have never been a blue-collar guy, but during my term in prison, I was a plumber. So I learned a plumbing trade, and a drug dealer from Marshalltown taught me actually a lot about plumbing. So, and working at a prison is kind of like, it was great because like it got us out doing something. We were allowed to work with tools. We had a little bit of freedom, and like I learned something. Like it was great. But there's a lot of days where like you need to work on this thing, and the guard that has the keys to get in there isn't there. So like it takes I began to understand why the government just can't do anything efficiently. It's just insanity. So then after that, like about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I'd be done with work, go, and I try to get out. There's an outside kind of recreation yard. So there's a 1/3 of a mile track roughly that was asphalt that I spent a lot of time just walking, praying, like just kind of like, God says he keeps in perfect peace those whose minds are set on him. In prison, and the whole experience is a very difficult place to have your mind in peace. But setting my mind on him and being outside in this kind of recreation yard workout area was like just a blessing from God, that like when I was depressed, when I was anxious, when I was fearful, when I was whatever, like if I just set my mind on him, sometimes it happened right away, sometimes it took 10 or 15 minutes, but he would come and he would renew my mind, he would refresh my soul, and I would find peace again. So, and then like, you go back to your unit, you go, same deal for the chow hall at nighttime, and then I would try to be in bed by like 7 o'clock, or 8 or 9 o'clock. So that was a day in my life.
Kyle, can you describe in detail what it was like when President Trump made the official pardon?
Yeah, what was it like? So by the time he took office in January of 25, right? Yeah. I was actually out of prison. And it was funny because I was out of prison, but I was on probation, so like they didn't really know what to do with me. I was kind of in this limbo state. But it was coming up to the day he was going to take office, and if you remember, there's a lot of controversy about, like, people were saying, you really shouldn't do this. You shouldn't pardon these guys. And it was 2 people I think had a really big impact on the president that helped it. It was Julie Kelly, who's kind of the journalist that followed this. She's done a lot of great work. And Charlie Kirk. And yeah. And this is the reason why the pardon was appropriate. It actually has nothing to do with what was done. What Charlie told the president is like, listen, the reason you pardon these people is not because everyone's totally innocent, because people broke windows, and you know what, honestly, we were trespassing, right? Like, they had business going on in Congress that day, and like, well, maybe we kind of deserve, they had far worse things that they had done, so like, there's layers to this, but like, just at face value, we're so like, was a pardon really justified? But here's why it was justified, is we weren't convicted under the laws of the United States. It was a total due process violation. Those courts had showed contempt for the law and the people of the United States. So my experience was like, praise God, I'm so glad this is over.
Any other questions?
I have a question. One last question.
What?
So this was Rochester, Minnesota, where you were, right? This was Rochester, Minnesota, right?
Yes.
You think that's going to be a good place for all those Somali fraudsters?
Yeah, with Rochester, I think they ought to go back to Mogadishu.
Just and a transit point, would that be okay?
Yeah, okay, yeah, they can transition from there. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Please, I'll be in the back, buy my book. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you, Rory.